I'm David, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I wanted to talk to you about the presence of Yeshua, also known as Jesus Christ, in the Old Testament. Of course, there are examples like in the book of Daniel, where King Nebuchadnezzar threw Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego into a fiery furnace, and the king noticed that there was a fourth individual in that furnace, and it appeared to be like the Son of God. This is what we would typically call a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. The examples I'll show you are much more subtle in nature, but are no less profound. In the book of Revelation, Jesus appears to his disciple, John, when John was banished to the Isle of Patmos. The first thing Jesus said in Revelation chapter 1, verse 8 was, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, saith the Lord, which is, which was, and which is to come, the Almighty." This statement, spoken by Jesus, declared his new moniker, his eternal existence, his omnipotence, and the fact that Jesus is God. Jesus went on to declare his new name again in Revelation chapter 1, verse 11. Jesus once again declares he is the first and the last in Revelation chapter 1, verse 17. Then, at the end of the book of Revelation, Jesus states that he is the Alpha and Omega in chapter 21, verse 6, and chapter 22, verse 13. In chapter 22, verse 13, Jesus said, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last." So, in the first chapter of the book of Revelation and in the last chapter of the book of Revelation, Jesus declares himself to be the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. Now, I want you to think about these two men. Jesus, during his earthly ministry, was a rabbi, and he taught in synagogues and even in the temple. Jesus knew Hebrew. John, also a devout Jew, would have been expected to be fluent in Hebrew. Now, consider that much of the book of Revelation references back to the Old Testament. That being the case, it is likely that the conversation between Jesus and John was actually spoken in Hebrew, and later John translated that conversation into Greek as he was moved or directed by the Holy Spirit. Greek was the international language of the time and had the best chance to reach the most people. Now consider the Hebrew alphabet and the Old Testament. I want you to look at the Hebrew alphabet. You'll notice that the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet is called Aleph, and the second letter is called Bet. So you put them together, Aleph, Bet, and it's where we get our term alphabet. This is the origin. Now I want you to look at this one letter, Vav, V-A-V. When you have a root word, let's say et, and you put this letter, Vav, at the beginning of it, it is a conjunctive word, like and or. In the case of Malachi, you'll see that this letter shows up at the beginning of a couple of different words, and it means and. And then, of course, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Tav. Remember, Hebrew goes from right to left. So it goes from right to left, and here is the last letter, Tav. So when Jesus said, "I am the Alpha and the Omega," in all reality, he probably said, "I am the Aleph and the Tav." If you start reading through the Old Testament in Hebrew, there's a word spelled with an Aleph and Tav that is used hundreds of times throughout the Old Testament. The word does not have an exact English equivalent. It is generally used to point out more definitely the object of a verb or preposition, similar to the word namely. The following is the first sentence of the book of Genesis, or in Hebrew it would be Bereshit. The following is the first sentence of the book of Genesis, or in Hebrew, Bereshit. It goes, Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim ve'et haaretz. And you'll notice that the fourth letter, right here, the fourth letter of this sentence is spelled et, or Alef Tav, or et. The same moniker Jesus used for himself in the book of Revelation. You'll also notice the second to the last sentence is spelled Vav Alef Tav. That's right here. The letter Vav at the beginning of the word means it is a conjunctive. In this case, it's translated in the King James as and. The rest of the root word retains the same meaning. With that in mind, there's really two Alef Tavs in the first sentence of the Bible. Now, the last sentence of the Old Testament is in the book of Malachi. Let's look at that. In the last sentence of the last book of the Old Testament, the book of Malachi, you'll notice that a word, et, shows up again as part of the second to the last word in that sentence. And here's the word, Alef Tov, and the sentence says, Veheshiv levaot al beniam velev beniam avotam benavo vehikatai et haaretz garim. And the King James translates that to say, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Jesus' Revelation moniker shows up again in the first sentence of the Old Testament and the last sentence of the Old Testament, and everywhere in between. If this video has been helpful or has provided you with some biblical insight, please subscribe to my channel, smash the thumbs up symbol, and send me a brief comment. If you didn't find this video helpful, well, you can always start your own YouTube channel. Have a wonderful day. God bless.